Stretching inland from the coast of equatorial West Africa lies Ghana, free and independent member of the Commonwealth of Nations. This is a glimpse of some of her people, their lives, and the problems they face in building their new nation today.
It began just like any other day. Like every morning, I went first to look at the sea. For the past 3 days it had been too rough to put out our net. Now the water was calmer. Today we would fish. For my family as well as for me, it began like any other morning. My wife Mansa began preparing our breakfast of akple, cakes made of pounded cornmeal and rice water. My daughter started playing in the sand, the way she always does when she first gets up. And my son, like a fish that one is, made straight away for the water. I let him go. A boy should have time for a swim in the morning before he has to go off to school. For my father too, this morning was no different from any other. But then my father would not consider changing his ways, even if the sky fell down into the sea. He was not a bad man, my father. He was capable of great love. But he hated to be caught showing it. He was a stern man, my father. When my sister Adjua fell in love with a man from far down the coast, my father disapproved. When Adjua married Kwame, my father swore he'd never speak to her again. My father was a religious man. Every morning, as soon as he got up, he went to the fetish grove.
Oh, on va tell. After the film. It's a phone. No, I bring you low, but Togilo. Talking Blanakwe. But Dokatana quicker.
In order to appease the gods and to make them look with favor on the day's fishing, my father poured a libation to them.
Badoma Rafisham Bronco Kakaraji. Bag Bagido, a Kodagber, a Shiragber, a Viragber, Yabanya Bromana, Le Mishanguno see. Amayo Togbot Tonano, Mauna Deji, Mauna Tota dry a Yaradema, Yanni Bromola, Yak Bromala, Voma Pepe, a Ballet Bromala.
My father was the owner of a fishing net. This made him a prominent man in our village. It also gave him half of all the fish caught in the net.
Kakarana woman. Rana woman Kama. Rana woman. You could have a woman. Rana woman. Kakarana woman.
The other half would be divided equally among the rest of us.
Numai go ase dona gamo numai akbatia wi dona gamo numai go ase dona numai pa numai tamali anyo
At Etsa, our way of fishing was always the same. The net was placed in the canoe, which takes it out beyond the surf and drops it on the floor of the sea. Our fathers fished this way, and their fathers before them. For my wife, the morning was only a little different. It happened to be market day in town. There was always great excitement on market days. Fishermen from across the lagoon came to sell what they had caught. People flocked into the town from miles away. The market is not only a place for buying and selling. It is a place where friends can meet and discuss other friends. You can buy anything you want at the market. Chickens, goats, fish, tinned goods, clothing, ornaments. Even the things some people need for mixing a love potion. It was here my wife came to sell the fish she had dried and smoked. If the day was a little different for my wife, it was no different at all for my son. My son studied his lessons in our language now. In the higher grades, he was studying English as well. I myself went to school for only a few years. Long ago, I made up my mind that my son would go to school for as many years as he could. After the net had been began pulling it in. The whole morning. That morning, the catch was not very good. During June and July, the fishing was mostly good. Then there were many herring. The rest of the year, we never knew what the net would hold. We did not complain. The next time we put out our net, maybe there would be more fish. It was always our hope. But that afternoon, the sea turned rough again. The chief fisherman sent word that this would be a good time to settle the dispute between my father and Sejuro, a man from the neighboring village. Fishing disputes were usually decided by the chief and a group of 12 men. The chief himself never spoke directly to those who were disputing. He spoke only to his linguist, and the linguist passed on what the chief had to say. It was not an unusual dispute. My father claimed that Sejuro had passed his net to the outside of my father's. The two nets had become tangled, and our catch for the day had been lost. Sejuro disagreed. He said he had not known my father's net was in the water at the time. Cases were only heard when the sea was too rough for work, or on a juju day, the day in each week when the fetish priests declared it would anger the gods if we fished. After both sides of the case had, the chief and the twin make their decision, the two disputers did not come to blows. By the middle of the afternoon, the chief's decision had been given, and my father's claim against Sejuro had been £3. My other women had already cleaned the morning's. Very little of it would be sold fresh. Most of it would either be spread out on racks to dry in the sun, or else smoked over a slow-burning fire. It was like any other afternoon when we could not fish. Quiet. I did not know why, but all at once I felt something was going to happen. And then it did. The telegram was from my brother-in-law Kwame. My sister Adjo was very ill. She wanted more than anything to see my father. My father would have nothing to do with Adjo. He had made his decision, and his mind could not be changed. Finally, I asked him if I could go to see her. The next morning, I went into the town to begin my journey. The town where my sister lived was far away. To get there, I would have to go through the city of Accra. Some of the road to Accra was good. And some was was very bad. There were 2 ways to cross the Volta River, which runs between my town and Accra. One is by a bridge, built not long ago by the government. But that was many miles out of our way. This was the other method. I had not been in Accra since I was a small boy. I could not get enough of looking. It was different from the way I remembered it. I did not recognize anything. Everything was new and bright and shining. It was almost evening when I got to my sister's town. There was a big fort in the center of the square. I had heard stories about the forts. It was in places like this that our forefathers were held captives before they were taken far across the ocean to be slaves.
Mami mpacho kwa me kwa kawai.
Paso hana ko bo mu dem fufu bi wa brasa na so ho owadan enyim.
I walked in the direction of the beach. I knew my brother-in-law would live close to the water because, like me, he was a fisherman. My sister was not as ill as I had feared. She had been very sick with fever. When Kwame sent the telegram, he had been sure she was going to die. But that morning, she had begun to get better. A doctor had come and given Adwa some pills, and this was the reason for her getting better.
Oh, school. Oh, Kofi na bonemi she. Oh, na. Oh, hey, lele. Oh, yo. Nina tete anyeke lo bahami. Wonalo.
Adwa was hungry for news of our village and wanted to talk, but Kwame was firm with her. He told her to sleep.
Adwa onye ehi kashi.
Ona ntalo ye.
Kashi. Onye behi wale. Otalo lele. Adwa behi wale kwa. Kofi. Oba anu ata adafu.
He told me to come with him and we would have some beer.
Adwa mimbao.
Yo.
Mi aba o.
Yo.
When we went into the cafe, some men were dancing to the radio music. They were lorry drivers. In a way, I envied them, but not really. I didn't want to be a lorry driver. I was a fisherman. While we were drinking our beer, Kwame told me about the way he fished. He did not use a seining net as we did in our village. He went out on the ocean in a boat driven by a motor and fished for the choice big fish with lines. I did not believe him. Kwame told me that he and the 5 men who fished with him brought back more fish in 2 days than my father's net caught in a month. You will see, said Kwame, tomorrow. On the way out to Kwame's boat, I asked him if he were not a very rich man to own such a craft. Kwame laughed and said he did not own it by himself. It belonged to all the men who fished from it. The government helped them buy it. Soon, if they continued to be lucky, they would be able to pay back all the money the government had loaned them. We went far out onto the sea. I'd never been so far away from the shore before. Kwame and the men with him caught many fish. In less than half a day, they had more fish and bigger ones than my father and I could catch in a week. The next day, Kwame took me to the place where the boats are made. The man who took us around told us how in the past few years, our people have learned how to make boats for fishing, which are very good. The hulls are built of Iroko and Kusia woods, trees grown in our country, wood so hard that even the sea worms cannot eat into it. If a man and some of his friends want to buy a boat and begin fishing, the government will lend them most of the money they have to pay. A week later, when my sister was almost entirely well, I left the town where she lived to go back to my village. When I reached Etsa, the people of my village were happy. It had been a good fishing day, and to celebrate, they were drumming. That evening, as we sat around the fire, My father was even more silent than usual. I wondered how I would say to him the thing I had to say. I told him about Kwame's boat, about the fish they were able to catch, how they could stay out on the ocean until they had filled their hold with the biggest and choicest fish. Then I asked my father what was in my mind. Why could we not have a boat like Kwame's? We could join together with 3 or 4 men from the village, and the government would lend us the money to get started. Mansa was afraid because I had aroused my father's anger with the talk of the boat. I too was afraid. I'd never seen my father so angry. But there was something I had to know. Now that I knew that Mansa believed in what I had said, in me, I was no longer afraid. My father said it was evil to want a boat, that we should bring down the anger of the gods by trying to break away from the old ways which have been ordered for us. Is it evil to want to do things better? Is it? Someday our boat will be anchored here. Someday I swear it will happen.